welcome back to the channel. I hope that you guys are doing well and you're having a wonderful Saturday. I wanted to share a little bit more from Love Heals by Becca Stevens, and we are in chapter 10, and it's Love Heals During the Act of Forgiving, Transforming Brokenness So We Can Live Free. That's the photo there. Here we go. There's a poem. Usually she has like a poem or something right at the beginning. I'm assuming she's written these. I don't know unless it says otherwise. I'm assuming she wrote these. This one's called Pearls of Great Price. When I still spoke as a child and dreamed of being a dancer, my innocence was traded for a precious secret pearl. I placed it in a silken purse, bound to my heart for years, praying a moth would eat through it, or a thief cut it loose instead of dancing. I dreamed of forgiveness that would let me offer the pearl, more valuable than a widow's mite. I could lay it on the altar of my youth, watching as the stone rolled away, then burn the purse as a sign of grace, dance around the flame, marveling at my unbridled heart, done grieving things I can't change while holding on to useless treasure. I would be free at last. Let's see. I haven't read through this chapter yet. This is like, I'm going to just share with you a little bit from it as I look through it here. The first thing she says in the first paragraph here is, when we forgive, we can find freedom. When we are free, healing is possible. When we cease to hold on to things that make us sick, we get better. After we accept God's mercy, we feel freer to forgive and let go. You know, it's interesting, and I should have pulled this out. As a matter of fact, maybe I will try to pull this out and pause this for a minute. I watched a video yesterday. Gosh, I'm like really close to this. I watched a video yesterday. And I think I shared this in probably the last video I recorded. I'm not sure, but it was the real Alex Clark, and it was about healing migraines. But in that, the doctor she spoke to talked a lot about different health issues, and a lot of these health issues they spoke about were things that I deal with. And he talked about it from he's a frequency functional medicine doctor. And so he spoke about how in conventional, like Western medicine, he says, I think, it'd be good. They're good for emergencies. There's times that we do need those things. There's times that is beneficial. But overall, of course, he thinks more in terms of natural healing, right? So one thing he talked about was how our emotions can cause us to have sickness. So like if we have lots of stomach issues or something, I think he talked about that being issues with anger and frustration. When we hold our feelings in, we don't cry, we don't deal with them, we just hold them tight. Our bodies get sick. And I watched it. I took a bunch of notes. I should have pulled out my notes, but maybe I'll pull them out when I pull the other thing out that I want to share, which is going to be funny because of what it looks like, but it'll go along sort of with what she just said here in this first thing and what I watched. So, I deal with holding on to things sometimes that I either haven't been able to figure out how to let it go, or I thought I did let it go and maybe I didn't. And some things I don't even know they're there. Those times when it's like you think you've dealt with something because you've talked about it, you've said, well, I've forgiven, I've let it go, I've done this, that, the other, but it's still there. It still affects you. And that's kind of where I'm at, where I think I've let it go, but I think I've let go of certain parts of it and not other parts of it, because I don't know. I don't know if it's I'm afraid to let it go because it's been a part of me for so long that I'm afraid that if I let it go, something strange is going to happen to me. Freedom, won't be so heavy. Things won't be so hard to carry, and all of that. So let me grab this thing that I'm going to share with you before I continue into this chapter. All right, I'm back. I'm going to go ahead and continue reading here, and then I will share that with you. It's something that I think will help me to share, and hopefully will help someone out there as well. Imagine that you are carrying around all the weight of resentments, bitterness, anger, and regret. Then imagine that freedom is just miles away, and all you have to do to find it is walk there. You can't make it with all the things you haven't forgiven holding you down. Forgiveness means dropping all that weight and walking toward the sweet freedom ahead. In the Gospels, Jesus teaches us that no matter what, no matter how many times or how hard it is, we need to forgive. When Peter asked him, "How many times shall I forgive?" Jesus gave him a number big enough that it would take Peter the rest of his life to achieve. 70 times 7. Matthew 18:21 through 22. That is how much Jesus wanted Peter to be free. How many times have we held on to unforgiveness? I think about that, and I think about, we think we forgave, right? And then all of a sudden, someone does something. And all of that old resentment comes up, and we're just ready to throw that back in their face again. Well, remember when you did, but I thought we forgave them, right? And if we take the example of how God, through Yeshua, through Jesus, has forgiven us, then that wouldn't even come up. There wouldn't be any room for any of that. Well, remember when you did this, remember when you did that, because, oh, sorry. I gotta drain out my leg. Okay, hold on. Okay. There wouldn't be any room for that, because when we forgive, we let it go, right? We drop it at the cross. It doesn't mean we forget everything, because it's still going to be there, but when we forgive, we need to let it go. We can't use that as an excuse to be mad at someone, or when someone does something to us, bring up the past and be like, well, you did, because that's the past. It's supposed to be over. God doesn't bring up our past. When we go to him humbly with a repentant heart and we ask for forgiveness, he forgives us completely, and he doesn't bring it up again. He doesn't say, well, remember, it's forgiveness, and it's just let it go. And the reason why I think we don't forget is just because there are lessons we have to remember. Don't allow this to happen again, and don't act like this. If it hurt you, don't treat someone like this. Those types of lessons. All right, the next thing that she says is forgiveness doesn't mean that we forget or that we don't hold one another accountable. It means that we can pray for the other person without sarcasm in our hearts, and that we no longer think of the one who has wronged us as our enemy. This, like most of the way of healing, is easier said than done. Like, seriously, because how many times just thinking of today, how many times have I thought, oh, this person bugs me because this is what they do, this she does or he does or whatever, and I can't stand it, and why can't they just, when instead of acting like that, instead of letting their whatever it is that bothers them, whatever bothers me about them, get to me and make me bitter and hard-hearted and then angry or frustrated with that person, I need to take it before the Lord and pray for them, because maybe in praying for them, and also it will soften my heart, and it'll teach me a lesson that, sometimes my personality may not be all that great either, and maybe I annoy people and I make people frustrated and angry or whatever. And if it's something, a lot of times when it's something that bothers us in someone else, not always, but there are some times that the reason why it bothers us is because it's something that we struggle with. or it's something we struggled with in the past and we've maybe have taken it out of our lives, or we're seeing it in someone else. But we need to remember how hard it was for us to change, or how if it's something we're currently struggling with, we need to remember, when we point the finger, if you're pointing back at us, take stock of what is going on in our heart and what we're doing, and begin that healing. So, and when we can forgive them, we can begin to heal not just relationships, not, but our hearts and our relationship with the Lord, because that is ultimately what we need. And a lot of times our attitudes towards other people hold us back from being the person that the Lord has called us to be. Here she shares, I learned this lesson through the act of forgiving the man who abused me for years as a child. He was part of the leadership of the church my father had pastored, and the abuse started after my father's death when I was about 5. Holding on to that secret and feeling angry made me pretty sick. I felt scared and acted out in ways that I later wished I hadn't. I experienced anxiety around authority, thought I needed to prove my worth, and had significant abandonment stress. Even as an adult, I was still suffering the effects of the abuse. Finally, when my oldest son turned 5, almost the same age when it all started for me, I knew that if I wanted to be well and serve my children and my community, I needed to be about the business of getting stronger. And that started with forgiving my abuser. It took time and a lot of soul searching. It didn't happen in a moment, but it did happen when I made the decision not to hold on to it any longer. I don't know how many people have been through situations like that, that you're sitting here watching this today, but those are some of the hardest things to forgive, because it steals away the innocence that you should have as a child, by someone who should know better. So it is one of the hardest things that we need to let go of. And I know there's so many people who deal with this. It's a sad and the most disgusting thing that is prevalent in the world. How many people deal with this kind of abuse from family members, from, like she says, a person who is a leader in their church, people in authority of any kind, teachers. We see it all the time happening. We hear about it. Some of us that are here sitting today have gone through some of that. And how do you let go? How do you forgive? How do you walk through those emotions? Because after watching the video that I said I saw yesterday, I think of all that unforgiveness, that why did this happen to me type of things that we hold on to is causing illness. When we don't deal with our emotions, when we don't deal with our grief, when we don't deal with things. And something that it made me realize while I was watching that is he said something to the effect of, like, when we hold on to things, I think he was talking about autoimmune diseases can be caused by parasites, can be caused by, different things like that, and deficiencies in our vitamins and minerals and things like that as well. And there's an emotional component as well, depending on what type of autoimmune disease you have, where it's located in your body. And he talked about different parts of our body. I think he was talking about, I don't know if it was Chinese medicine that he mentioned, but kind of how everything in our bodies is connected to some emotion. And, reading through the book that we're doing now, Untangle Our Emotions, or Untangle Your Emotions, we know God has created us this way. God has created us with emotions. And I mean, what happens when you get excited? Sometimes you get butterflies in your stomach and you get like that tingly feeling. Well, that also happens when we're anxious. But when it's the anxiety, for me, I get that kind of a butterfly feeling in my stomach, but it's more of a punch in the gut, like something bad's going to happen, that kind. And then there's like the excitement is more of like ooh, this is fun, something exciting. But our bodies react to the emotions. So that makes it really makes me think about what I was doing, what I was thinking, what I was holding on to, how I was feeling that was causing my emotions or my body to get worse, my health to get worse, because I found myself in a lot of anxiety inducing situations. Some were just things because of past things that happened. Sometimes it's just certain situations that are happening just right at the moment or whatever, and I noticed that they will affect my body. Well, when I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis in March of last year, um, and I'm not one to get sick with colds or things like that, right? Well, in 2022, when my mom passed away, that year we also had fires around here, really bad. A really bad fire, not too, and it was like right on the other edge of the mountain from where we're at. We could see it from here. So I know that was part of the environmental part of it. But see, I don't know how to deal with grief. I don't know how to cry. I don't know how to handle that. I don't like emotion. I don't want to deal with it. I just want to stuff it away. So when my mom passed away, I dealt with some of the emotion when I had to. Like sometimes it would spill out. It happened in a video a while back. But for the most part, I hold on to it really tightly. I change subjects. I disassociate myself from it. I detach myself. I do anything I possibly can so I don't have to deal with it. And that makes things really hard. Well, that end, my mom passed away in July of 2022. Right after that, I think it was in August or September, I started getting a cough. It just lasted and lasted. Just a cough, 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 cough. And I don't know if it's like my mom, she passed away from pulmonary fibrosis. I don't know if that got stuck in my head. I don't know. And I was just trying to do a lot. I was trying to make sure I was there for everybody and do whatever needed to be done. And I wasn't really taking care of myself, which is the norm for me anyway. But I had this cough that lasted for a long time. And I finally, in November, is when I started getting even sicker. Like it started turning into a sore throat. And then I would get these like, by the end of the day, it would be like my mouth. It wasn't my throat necessarily. It was just like my mouth and like the roof of my mouth and like around my teeth, and that would just get swollen. And I couldn't eat because it would hurt too much to eat. Like it wasn't even that it was a sore throat to swallow. It was more like just inflamed. But I ignored it. I was like, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So I took, teas and stuff like that, and I did like the Mucinex stuff because I thought it was a cold, and all the stuff that I tried. I didn't have any fevers. I didn't have any achies. It wasn't like the flu. I didn't feel like anything like that. December comes around. My mom's brother, the next oldest, he passes away on Christmas Day. And then we had his funeral services, and I think I've shared this before, but we had his funeral services in January. I remember being on a Wednesday. I went to my hometown for the services, and when I got home, I was hungry because we had eaten for lunch, and we hung out with the family and everything. So I thought, I got here kind of late, and I told my husband, well, let's go get some thing to eat from Dairy Queen here in Pecos. And I didn't want to drive into town because it was already dark and I had already driven. And so I had him drive, and when I got back, well, usually the one that's not driving gets down and gets the gate and opens the gate, right? Well, there was some black ice and I didn't see it. And he was parking. He was already down in the thing. I had gone up to close the gate, whatever. I was coming down and I fell right on my back. And I think just the emotions, the grief that I was holding on to from losing my mom, and then my uncle passing away, and just all of the stuff that was going on, worrying about my dad and my sisters and my brother and all the nieces and everything, because we were all, like dealing with all this stuff. And then this was my mom's brother, and my grandma was sick, and, you know, just the things that were going on. And it was like, I don't know. When I fell and I hit my back, um, I got the chills so bad. It was so weird. I'd never had that feeling in my life. Um, I couldn't get warm. I couldn't do anything. I just felt so weird, but I didn't have a fever. It was just the weirdest feeling. And so we ate, and I went to bed after that, and I struggled with that feeling of the chills, and they finally went away, and I still ignored. But I still had the inflammation in my mouth in the evening only. During the day, it was just like a sore throat and a cough. And in January, sometime after that, it was probably end of January that maybe I went to the urgent care. They told me that I didn't have strep throat or anything like that. Possibly it was bronchitis because I had a cough for so long, but they didn't know. I had a little bit of wheezing in my right lung, but it was really bad. So they gave me an antibiotic, and I was taking Mucinex. They also gave me an inhaler and some stuff for allergies, nasal sprays and all kinds of stuff, because I do have allergies. And when I've had bronchitis one other time in my life, in my 20s, and that time I had to use an inhaler because I get allergy induced asthma sometimes. And that was like really only a couple times in my life that that's happened. But I had to use all of that stuff during that time. Still, with the antibiotic, it didn't really do anything. The sore throat kind of sort of went away, but that inflammation stayed. So I went back and I told them, they gave me another round of antibiotics. Nothing. They went back. I told them, I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on. I need to figure this out. This is probably by February by now. And around this time, I think, if I'm not mistaken, my mom's third in line of age brother was really sick, ended up in the hospital with pneumonia. He almost died. Thank God he's doing well, it seems now. But he is on oxygen and stuff like that. There's issues, I guess, like genetic issues or whatever that they've got going on, that they just struggle with things like that. But I finally went back, got a steroid. After that, I finally felt better from all that. It hasn't bothered me since. But in March, no, that was that year, actually, let's see, it was 2023 that all that happened. And I started feeling really sick after that, just like getting worse with the fatigue, or getting worse with just overall just not feeling well and not being able to deal with stress. I mean, dealing with stress got so bad. I've always had issues with it, but like if I even like felt a little stressed out, my whole body shut down. Like it was just bad, really bad throughout that year. Come March of 2024, and right before that, actually, the end of 2023 is when, or about maybe mid 2023, that's when my sugars just kept rising and rising and rising. And every time that happened in the past, I got it straightened out really quick. Within 3 months, it was back down to like a 6, or usually was staying within that range. Well, this time around, every 3 months that I checked it for a while there in 2023, it was getting up and up. It went up to like a 7.8, then an 8 point something, 4, I think, and then it went all the way up to like a 9.3, I believe was my highest. We struggled with the insurance. We finally got Trulicity, which I was sick for 3 months with that, but it did bring it down a little bit. Then they ran out of that one because I was at the lowest dose, and I was going to stick at the lowest dose because it seemed to be helping, or go up to the 5, I think, and they had run out of the 5, I think is what it was, the next one up. So they switched me to Mounjaro, but I had to go to 2.5 because it was a new one for me, and we wanted to make sure that my body would handle it. So that was in March of 2024. Started that. And at that same time, I was getting blood work for like my thyroid and all the different things as well. And my thyroid was normal, but I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And, it just clicked watching this. And actually, the funny thing is, I think I knew something was going on because I can't deal with emotion. I don't deal with it. I hold everything in, and I knew my body was not handling it. And I knew it. Like there was something telling me, I think it was just God trying to get my attention. You need to slow down. You need to take care of yourself. Something's wrong. You're going to get worse. Things are going to get worse if you don't stop and take care of yourself. And so, I went through thinking, no, I'm fine. So I finally couldn't anymore. And I started dealing with things and, having lots and lots of conversations with God and just trying to open up for real in therapy, and trying to face myself. And that's been one of the hardest things, and face all the things that I know I'm holding on to, past traumas, things that have been really hard for me to deal with, things that I still haven't really dealt with, because I don't talk about hard things, because then I'm going to cry, and I don't want to cry, and I don't want to ugly cry. I don't want to do any of that stuff. And then I don't want to be a burden. Like, I feel bad because when I bring things up and I take them to my husband or whatever, it's like, he wants to fix them for me, and I know why. I know he wants, and I just feel bad, like I'm being a burden. Like even now that don't feel well and I'm dealing with these health issues, I feel like a burden on him and on, my family, on everybody. And it's just really hard to be in this position. And so this year, God gave me the word surrender. Man, has it been hard. I mean, I'm learning, I'm slowly doing this. I'm slowly surrendering my need to hold on to emotion, or at least my need to pretend that I don't have any, that I'm just floating along and I'm fine with that. So we'll see what the next months bring, in respect to that, because I just feel like there's so much I need to learn and so much I need to let go of. And it's interesting that I watched that video and then I had a conversation with Lori from Life on Foothill that I think I mentioned in a previous video. And I did share this that I'm going to share with you guys soon in this video with her. And it's just all kind of coming together. And so let me go ahead and continue here with some more of what she's shared. The first thing I did was to talk to some trusted friends and my husband. Then I talked with a counselor. I began to earnestly pray for the man and his family and myself. I started seeing that what had transpired more than 2 decades earlier differently. I began to see that everyone in the story needed some mercy, and that in fact the hard lessons I learned through that trauma had given me a gift of compassion for women on the streets and in prisons. The next thing I did was difficult and exhausting. I went to this man. Oh, I think he moved it. And his wife, and shared my story. My main goal was to give the story of his abuse back to him, so I didn't have to carry it like a secret cancer anymore. I wanted them to deal with it. I was very specific and careful in the meeting. And it was a huge step in learning to forgive. The step of confronting an abuser is not appropriate for everyone. You need to talk with a counselor, pastor, or trusted friend before you embark on such a journey. Sometimes a confrontation can happen through writing, through a mediator, or even in a letter. You write and then burn. All right, I'm back. My husband just got here from out of town, so I'm not sure exactly where I was, but I'm going to just go ahead and read a little bit more from here. I like the idea that she talks about like writing it down and burning it, because I think certain things, certain times that it's good for us, I think, to do that. That's why I like the brain dumping and all of that stuff. Here she says, in forgiveness, the small drops of freedom make their way into rivers that allow the healing hope of justice to flow. Without forgiveness, those waters are dry and we are left parched. This world needs more forgiveness for those waters to flow. Without forgiveness, the waters of faith are in a drought. Let me see. This is Isaiah 43, 1-4. But now this is what the Lord says. He who created you, Jacob, he who formed you, Israel. Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. I give Egypt for your ransom, Cush and Sheba in your stead. You are precious and honored in my sight, and because I love you. We are here to love ourselves, each other, and God. Mark 12:30-31. But in order to love ourselves and love our neighbors, we need to forgive ourselves. Forgiving ourselves is one of the hardest parts of living free and well. We know what our secrets are. We know everything we have done and everything we have left undone. When we can't forgive ourselves, we stay sick, and those things keep us living in shame. Let's see. Whoa, I lost my place. Those are the times I feel most grateful for all I have learned about forgiveness. Once we have forgiven ourselves, and stories that may have been hard for us to hear are now an opportunity to show compassion for a sister. So she was talking to someone, and she's telling her this, whatever the story was, and she said that she asked her, what can't you forgive? And so, she kind of just let it all out. And she says, as she listened, she didn't go through all of her, I didn't go through each of her wrongs and parse them out. She just held the story for her and kept saying silent prayers for her to find the faith to forgive herself so she could love herself. Because sometimes that's what we need. We need to just have someone there to hold space for us. All she needed before she began was someone to hear her story and still love her. I think that's the thing. Sometimes we don't share things, we don't deal with things because we are having issues loving ourselves. So we say we don't want to share with someone else because we're afraid we're going to lose their love. And it's really scary sometimes. It's scary to be humble, it is, because we have to humble ourselves to be able to go to that place where we can let go of things and forgive ourselves and find that freedom. Who is a God like you, pardoning iniquity and passing over the transgression? Oh my goodness. Let me start that all over again. Who is a God like you, pardoning iniquity and passing over the transgression of the remnant of his heritage? He does not retain his anger forever, because he delights in mercy. He will again have compassion on us and will subdue our iniquities. He will cast all our sins into the depths of the sea. Micah 7:18-19. Learning the art of forgiveness is a daily practice, like the other means of healing love we've talked about in this book. Like anything else, we become better at forgiving as we devote ourselves to it intentionally. Forgiveness is something we need to practice. We need to practice it in the woods, in prison, in church, at work, and at home. If we can't forgive, we must practice harder or change the practice of our faith. Faith is rooted in God's forgiveness and in our ability to forgive each other and ourselves. That is the way we will find the keys to the kingdom. Today, give a few of these a try as you work to forgive yourself and others. So here's 7 different things that we can try. Decide one thing you need to forgive. Pray for the thing or person that holds you in bondage. Take a practical step that will help you to forgive, such as writing a letter or setting up a time to talk to a pastor or counselor. Imagine what it might be like to have forgiven the person or thing. Picture what amends, atoning might look like for you to feel forgiven or to forgive. Pray again for the obstacles holding you back from forgiving yourselves or others. Start again the next day. Then practice these 7 steps 7 more times. And that is the end of that chapter. So, I know I struggle a lot with forgiving myself. And a lot of times the biggest issue that I have with myself is not allowing myself to deal with things I need to deal with, just overall. So I'm going to share this with you. I did this in 2014. And this is the worst drawings ever, but this is me. It's supposed to be me. And I'm carrying a bag filled with all the things and this wasn't even all of them because I didn't want to write some of them down. And then this was my road up to freedom, to salvation, to the cross, to to where we're covered and we're loved and we're redeemed and we find our freedom and we have grace. And here I wrote, like, on the road up is love, grace, salvation, joy, and peace. Let them lead me to your holy hill and to your tabernacle. Psalm 43:3. And I wrote down, I must be emptied of me so God can work. My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. He leads me by still waters. He restores my soul. Psalms 23:2-3. And in the sun, I wrote down, oh, send out your light and your truth. And then I wrote over the cross in that area, no fear in love. Down here at the bottom, I had this area here. It's this way leads to darkness, and this way leads to grace. Therefore submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. James 4:7. You will show me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. Psalm 16:11. And down here in this area, it's darkness, trap, temptation, giving up, back to the pit, desolation, loneliness, sadness. And then I wrote in the middle, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Psalm 23:4. And then in little bubbles above the head of what's supposed to be me, the stick figure, is help and I'm tired. And I wrote down, like, there's different things that I wrote in here were different struggles that I was going through, which like health stuff, PCOS, fibromyalgia, panic, fear, pain, diabetes, this whatever sin was holding me back, not being good enough, high blood pressure, feeling ugly, feeling hurt, anxiety, negative words, hypothyroidism, stress, loss, depression, broken, being lost, being overweight, low self-esteem, osteoarthritis, abuse. And those are just some of the things that I wrote in this big sack. This is supposed to be a sack that I'm carrying with me. And that's exactly what it feels like when we carry along our sin and carry along our hurts and our unforgiveness and our bitterness. It gets so heavy that we can't make it up to where grace is, because we're being held down in the darkness of things that all we have to do is let go at the foot of the cross, just leave them there. And I'm learning that, and I'm hoping that I can share more with you guys as we go along on this journey of surrender and this journey to healing. And I hope that you guys have a wonderful day and that you are blessed and you are well. And if you ever need any prayer, leave those in the comments below. Also, if you guys want to have a chat, we can have a video chats or just chat through Messenger. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. I think I have those linked in my description of the channel. Feel free to message me there or add me as a friend if you'd like. And I'll see you guys in the next one. God bless you. Bye.